The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between star systems. It was bigger than most moons and served as the meeting place for the Galactic Council. Today, ships from 47 different alien species docked at its ports. They had all come for one reason: to discuss the human problem. Hyunwoo Park walked through the long metal corridors of the station. He was Earth's diplomatic attaché, which meant he spoke for humanity at these meetings. Hyunwoo was young, for a diplomat, only 35 years old, but he was smart and careful with his words. He wore the simple blue uniform of the United Earth Federation and carried a small device that translated alien languages. As he entered the main council chamber, Hyunwoo felt something was wrong. The huge circular room was full of aliens, but they all stopped talking when they saw him. Hundreds of eyes, some red, some yellow, some completely black, stared at him. The silence was thick and uncomfortable. "Please take your seat, human representative," said Vorthak Prime Minister Gextar. The Vorthak looked like giant gray lizards that walked on two legs. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy and thought they were better than everyone else. Hyunwoo sat in the small chair marked for Earth. It was placed far from the center, showing that humans were not considered important. Around him sat the real powers of the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire controlled over 200 worlds. The Krellin Dominion had the strongest military fleet. The Synthesis Collective had technology that could turn planets into machines. "We have called this emergency session," announced General Raxoth of the Krellin, "to address a growing threat to galactic stability." The Krellin looked like huge insects, with 4 arms and armor-like skin. They loved war and conquest. General Raxoth's voice was like grinding metal when he spoke. "What threat?" asked Hyunwoo. He genuinely did not know what they were talking about. Vorthak. Prime Minister Gextar activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with human colonies marked in bright red dots. "This threat, human. Your species." Hyunwoo looked at the map. Humans had indeed spread quickly since first contact 50 years ago. They had colonies on 17 worlds now, but all of these colonies were on empty planets or planets that other species did not want. "I do not understand," said Hyunwoo. "We have followed all galactic laws. We have not taken any worlds that belong to other species." "That is not the problem," hissed Director Sith-Eye of the Synthesis Collective. The Synthesis were strange beings that were part machine and part organic. They spoke in electronic voices. "The problem is what you do on these worlds." Another hologram appeared. It showed human terraforming machines working on a dead planet. The machines were turning the lifeless rock into a world with breathable air and flowing water. "You're terraforming. Technology is too advanced," said General Raxoth. "You make dead worlds into garden worlds in just 10 years. This disrupts the natural order." "But we share this technology freely," protested Hyunwoo. "Any species can request our help with terraforming." "Exactly the problem," roared Prime Minister Gextar. "You give advanced technology to primitive species. You upset the balance of power." Hyunwoo began to understand. The major species kept smaller species weak by controlling who got advanced. Technology. When humans shared their inventions freely, it threatened this system. "You have also been trading with species we have classified as restricted," added Director Scythe-Eye. "The Zephyrian bird people, the aquatic Hydrosians, the crystal-based Luminari. These species are under our protection." Hyunwoo knew that protection meant slavery. The Zephyrians mined dangerous crystals for the Krellin. The Hydrosians were forced to give their water-rich worlds to the Vorthak. The Luminari had to provide energy from their crystal bodies to power synthesis machines. "We believe in free trade with all peaceful species," said Hyunwoo carefully. "That belief is dangerous," said General Raxoth. "It leads to chaos and war." Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species nodded in agreement. They all benefited from the current system where a few major powers controlled everything. Therefore, announced Prime Minister Gextar, we must take action to protect galactic stability. The vote was quick and unanimous. Every species except Earth voted yes. Hyunwoo was not even allowed to vote since Earth was considered too young to have full council rights. The resolution passes, declared Prime Minister Gextar. Humanity will be contained for the good of all. Earth and all human colonies will be blockaded. No ships will be allowed to enter or leave human space. Humans will be relocated to designated worlds where they can be properly supervised. Hyunwoo stood up quickly. You cannot do this. This is an act of war. This is an act of peace, corrected Director SciFi. We are preventing future conflicts by stopping human expansion now. Your species will be well cared for, added General Raxoth with what might have been a smile. You will have everything you need as long as you stay in your assigned areas. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. Not one species spoke up for humanity. Even the smaller species that had benefited from human technology stayed silent. They were too afraid of the major powers. When does this blockade begin? Asked Hyunwoo. It has already begun, said Prime Minister Gextar. Our fleets moved into position while we were voting. Hyunwoo felt his blood turn cold. While he had been sitting here listening to speeches, alien warships had surrounded Earth and every human colony. We suggest you contact your government and advise them to surrender peacefully, said General Raxoth. Resistance will only lead to unnecessary destruction. Hyunwoo touched the small recording device hidden in his jacket. He had been secretly recording the entire meeting. His government needed to know that this was not just a blockade. It was the first step toward enslaving humanity. I will deliver your message, said Hyunwoo quietly. As he left the chamber, Hyunwoo heard the aliens already discussing how to divide up human technology and worlds among themselves. They talked about humans like they were already defeated, but Hyunwoo knew something they did not. He had seen the secret projects that Earth's government had been working on. Humanity had been preparing for this day since first contact. The aliens thought they were trapping mice. They had no idea they were about to cage a tiger. The real war was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's vote. The blockade was now complete. Alien warships surrounded Earth like a steel net. Every human colony was cut off from the home world. No ships could get in or out of human space. President Ji-hoon Choi stood in the war room deep beneath the United Earth Federation headquarters. Around him, screens showed the positions of enemy fleets. There were thousands of alien ships pointing their weapons at human worlds. The Krellin fleet has moved closer to Mars, reported Admiral So-min Lee. She was the commander of Earth's first interstellar fleet. Her ships were fast and well-armed, but they were badly outnumbered. They are demanding an answer to their surrender terms. What about the other colonies? Asked the president. All 17 worlds are surrounded, said Yuna Han, head of Earth's intelligence division. The aliens are being very careful. They do not want to damage the planets. They want to capture them intact. President Ji-hoon looked at the main screen. It showed a message from the Galactic Council that had been repeating for weeks. The terms were simple. Surrender all advanced technology, accept alien supervisors on every human world, and agree to stop all expansion. In return, humans would be allowed to live as a protected species. They think we are helpless, said the president quietly. Sir, said a young officer, Captain Dongwook Song is requesting permission to attempt a supply run to New Seoul Colony. His ship is fast and might be able to break through. New Seoul was one of the newer human colonies. It had only 50,000 people, but they were running low on medical supplies. Captain Song commanded a civilian transport ship, but he was brave and skilled. Permission denied, said Admiral So-min firmly. It would be suicide. The aliens would destroy him before he got halfway there. President Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled in a way that made everyone nervous. Actually, let Captain Song try his supply run. But first, send a message to all alien fleets. What message, sir? Asked Admiral So Min. Tell them that Earth bows to no one. The President's message was broadcast on all frequencies. Every alien ship heard it. The response was immediate. The alien commanders laughed at human stubbornness. They expected Earth to surrender within days once the blockade really started to hurt. Captain Dong-Wook Song prepared his ship, the transport vessel New Seoul, for the supply run. He loaded medical supplies and food for the colony. His crew of 12 was nervous but determined. They all knew this might be a one-way trip. "All ships ready, Captain," reported his first officer, a young woman named Yoon Hee. "Then let's show these aliens what humans can do," said Captain Song. The New Seoul launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. Immediately, alien scanners detected it. Krellin warships moved to intercept, their weapons powered up, ready to destroy the small human ship. But something impossible happened. Just as the alien weapons fired, the New Seoul simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The Krellin weapons hit empty space. "Where did it go?" demanded General Raxoth from his command ship. His sensor officers checked their equipment frantically. "Sir, the ship has completely disappeared. No trace on any scanner." "Ships do not just disappear. Find it." But they could not find it. The New Seoul had entered what humans called quantum fold space. It was a parallel dimension that existed alongside normal space. Ships in quantum fold could not be detected or attacked by conventional weapons. Dr. Tae-hyun Kim had been working on this technology for years in secret. The theory was simple, but the engineering was incredibly difficult. By folding space-time, a ship could move through a dimension where the normal laws of physics worked differently. The New Seoul traveled through quantum fold space and emerged right next to New Seoul Colony. The alien ships surrounding the colony had no idea it was there. Captain Song delivered his supplies and picked up colonists who wanted to return to Earth. When the ship vanished again, the alien blockade commanders panicked. They sent urgent messages to their governments. "The humans have new technology," reported Admiral Vextai of the Vorthak Fleet. "They can make their ships invisible and untouchable." "Impossible," replied Prime Minister Gextar from Nexus Prime. "Human technology is primitive. They must be using some kind of trick." But it was not a trick. Over the next few weeks, more human ships began to disappear and reappear. Small Earth vessels would suddenly appear inside the alien blockade, then vanish before the aliens could react. They delivered supplies, picked up people, and gathered intelligence. The aliens tried everything. They used new types of scanners. They spread their ships in wider patterns. They even tried firing randomly at empty space, hoping to hit invisible ships. Nothing worked. Worse for the aliens, the human ships started fighting back. A Krellin destroyer would be patrolling its sector when suddenly weapons fire would come from nowhere. The ship would be damaged or destroyed by an enemy it could not see or hit back. "This is unacceptable," roared General Raxoth during an emergency council meeting. "How can we maintain a blockade against ships we cannot detect?" "Our technology experts are working on the problem," assured Director Sci-Fi of the Synthesis Collective. "We will find a way to track these ghost ships." But they could not. Human quantum fold technology was based on principles that the aliens had never discovered. They had focused on making bigger ships and more powerful weapons. Humans had learned to step outside the normal universe entirely. The psychological effect on the alien fleets was devastating. Soldiers began to fear empty space. They knew that death could come from nowhere at any moment. Some alien crews refused to leave their heavily defended positions. President Ji-hoon watched the reports with satisfaction. The blockade that was supposed to cage humanity had become a prison for the aliens. Their ships were trapped in defensive positions, afraid to move while human vessels came and went as they pleased. "How many ships can we keep in quantum fold?" asked Admiral So Min. Dr. Taehyun says we can maintain about 200 vessels indefinitely, replied Yuna Han. And he is working on improvements to the technology. 200 ghost ships, mused the president. That should be enough to start the real war. Admiral So-min looked confused. The real war? Sir, we are already at war. President Ji-hoon smiled again, and this time his smile was fierce like a predator. No, Admiral. So far, we have only been defending ourselves. But this was never about just defending Earth. This was about changing the entire galaxy. He turned to look at a star map showing the positions of all major alien civilizations. Red marks showed the locations of enslaved species throughout the galaxy. The aliens made a mistake when they decided to cage humanity, said the president. They thought we would focus on escaping the cage. They never considered that we might decide to tear down the entire zoo. The orders went out that night. Human ships in quantum-fold space received new missions. They were no longer just supporting human colonies. Now they had a much bigger job. It was time to start freeing every enslaved species in the galaxy. 6 months into the blockade, strange things began happening all across the galaxy. The Zephyrian homeworld had been a prison for 300 years. The bird-like people with their beautiful feathered wings were forced to mine deadly quantum crystals for the Krellin Empire. The crystals powered Krellin weapons, but they slowly poisoned anyone who touched them. On the mining moon of Kethvar, Zephyrian workers dragged their chains as they entered the crystal caves. Their wings had been clipped, so they could not fly. Many were sick from crystal poisoning. Krellin guards watched them with electric whips ready. Suddenly, the guards started falling. Silent weapons fire came from nowhere. The Zephyrians looked around in confusion as their oppressors dropped one by one. When the last guard fell, a voice spoke in perfect Zephyrian language. "People of the sky, your chains are broken. You are free." A human ship materialized out of nothing. It was painted black with silver markings that looked like wings. The airlock opened, and humans in protective suits came out. They carried tools to remove the Zephyrian chains and medicine to treat crystal poisoning. Captain Mi-young Lim removed her helmet and spoke to the frightened Zephyrians. "We are humans from Earth. We have come to help you." "But the Krellin will return," said an old Zephyrian whose wings had been completely cut off. "They will punish us terribly." "No," said Captain Mi-young firmly. "Look up." Above them, explosions lit up the sky. The Krellin orbital stations were being destroyed by invisible attackers. Guard ships tried to fight back, but they could not hit. Enemies they could not see. One by one, every Krellin vessel was eliminated. "The Krellin Empire ends today on this world," announced Captain Mi-young. "But you must choose what comes next. We can give you weapons and training to fight for yourselves, or we can take you to safe worlds where you can live in peace." Most of the Zephyrians chose to fight. They had centuries of anger to release. Captain Mi-young's crew gave them human weapons and taught them how to use quantum-fold technology. Soon, Zephyrian freedom fighters were appearing on Krellin worlds throughout the sector. The same pattern repeated across the galaxy. On the water world of Aquanis, the Hydrosian people lived under Vorthak rule. The Hydrosians were blue-skinned, humanoids who could breathe underwater. The Vorthak forced them to drain their own oceans to supply water to Vorthak desert worlds. Captain Jae Sung-yu and his diplomatic team visited the Hydrosian resistance in secret. They met in underwater caves where Vorthak scanners could not reach. "We have heard rumors," said choral singer Velta, leader of the resistance. "They say ghost ships are fighting the oppressors. They say freedom is possible." "Freedom is not just possible," said Captain Jae Sung. "It is inevitable, but it must come from you. We can give you the tools, but you must choose to use them." Within days, Vorthak water extraction facilities began exploding. Hydrosian rebels, armed with human quantum weapons, struck from the deep oceans where Vorthak ships could not follow. The proud Vorthak Empire found its water supplies cut off and its ships mysteriously vanishing. The humans called their operation the Underground Railroad, after an old Earth tradition of helping enslaved people escape to freedom. But this railroad did not just help people escape, it gave them the power to free themselves. Captain Yun Ji Kang coordinated the entire operation from her command ship, the Silent Thunder. She was a strategic genius who could see patterns across dozens of star systems. Her ship existed permanently. In quantum-fold space, impossible for enemies to find or attack. Status report, she requested during a daily briefing. 17 slave worlds have been liberated in the past month, reported her intelligence officer. The luminary crystal beings have joined the rebellion. Their energy powers have been weaponized against the Synthesis Collective. What about the major powers? How are they responding? Panic. They are pulling their fleets back from the Earth blockade to protect their core worlds. But they cannot fight enemies they cannot see. Captain Yunji smiled. The blockade of Earth was becoming weaker every day as alien ships were called away to deal with rebellions. But that was not the real victory. Are the freed species working together? She asked. Yes, ma'am. The Zephyrians are sharing flight technology with the Hydrosians. The Luminari are providing energy to power Hydrosian underwater cities. They are building their own alliance. That was the true goal. Humanity was not trying to replace the old galactic order with a human empire. They were teaching oppressed species to work together as equals. The psychological effect on the major powers was devastating. For thousands of years, they had maintained control by keeping smaller species weak and isolated. Now those species were united, armed with advanced technology, and fighting for their freedom. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session almost daily. The chamber that had once been filled with confident rulers now held frightened leaders. The situation is out of control, admitted General Raxoth. Half of his Krellin fleet had been destroyed by rebels using human technology. We cannot fight enemies that can appear and disappear at will. The humans have turned the entire galaxy against us, hissed Prime Minister Gextar. They are more dangerous than we thought. We should have destroyed Earth when we had the chance, said Director Sci-Fi. Now it may be too late. But it was already too late. The old order was crumbling. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were free and angry. They had human weapons and human technology, but more importantly, they had human ideas about freedom and equality. The rebellion spread like wildfire. The Christek hive minds broke free from synthesis control. The plant-like Verdani escaped from Vorthak agricultural worlds. The energy beings Stellari stopped powering alien space stations and began fighting for their own independence. Each liberated species received the same message from their human allies. Your freedom belongs to you. Fight for it, protect it, and share it with others. Captain Mi Young led a raid on a Krellin fortress world. Her ship, along with Zephyrian freedom fighters, struck the main military base. As Krellin defenders fell back in confusion, she broadcast a message on all frequencies. This is Captain Mi Young Lim of the Terran Liberation Front. To all oppressed peoples, your chains can be broken. To all oppressors, your time is ending. Freedom is not given, it is taken. The message was heard across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species looked up at the stars and began to hope. In the palaces of the great empires, rulers realized that their ancient power was slipping away. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through superior force. They had conquered it through a more powerful weapon, the idea that every being deserved to be free. And once that idea took root, no amount of military power could stop it from growing. 1 year after the blockade began, the galaxy was in chaos. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 15th time that month. Prime Minister Gextar looked around the chamber and saw empty seats where proud species once sat. 17 major empires had fallen to rebellions. Their representatives were either dead, hiding, or begging for protection. "The situation report," demanded General Raxoth, though his voice no longer carried the same confidence. His once mighty Krellin fleet was reduced to less than a quarter of its original size. Admiral Torvak of the remaining Krellin forces spoke with a trembling voice. "The humans have created something we never expected. They call it the Galactic Liberation Fleet. It is not just human ships anymore. Freed species are working together, using combined technology." "Impossible," said Director Sci-Fi, but the electronic voice lacked its usual certainty. "Species hate each other. They fight over resources. They cannot work together." "That is what we always believed," replied Admiral Torvak. "But the humans have changed everything. They have given these species a common enemy, us. Worse, they have given them hope for something better." A holographic display activated, showing a massive space battle. Human ships fought alongside Zephyrian fighters, hydrogen waterships, and luminary energy vessels. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they were one fleet instead of many different species. "How is this possible?" whispered Prime Minister Gextar. Admiral Wujin Nam's voice answered from the display. He was the human commander of the Liberation Fleet, broadcasting from his flagship. "It is possible because we fight for freedom, not conquest. We fight together, not alone." The alien leaders had been intercepting human communications for months, trying to understand their enemy. What they discovered terrified them more than any weapon. Analysis of human behavior patterns, reported a synthesis drone, indicates they are apex predators who have evolved beyond normal predator instincts. "Explain," demanded Director Sithai. "Most predators dominate through fear and strength. Humans dominate through inspiration and sacrifice. They make their allies stronger instead of keeping them weak. This is an evolutionary impossibility, but it was not impossible. It was human nature. For millions of years on Earth, humans had survived by working together against stronger predators. They had learned that cooperation was more powerful than competition." Chief Engineer Subin John had been studying captured alien technology and adapting it for the Liberation Fleet. Her workshop on the Human Fortress Station was a wonder of mixed technologies. Krellin weapons powered by luminary energy. Vorthak shields upgraded with human quantum fold principles. Zephyrian fighters equipped with hydrosian water cooling systems. "The aliens never shared technology," she explained to a group of alien refugees who had joined the human cause. "They kept their secrets to maintain power. But when we share our technology, everyone becomes stronger." The alien refugees nodded in understanding. They were scientists and engineers from species that had served the great empires. Now they worked freely, combining their knowledge with human innovation. But the humans had another advantage that the alien empires could not understand. They had studied their enemies for 50 years and learned a terrible truth about galactic civilization. Psychologist Kyung-Ho Shin had spent decades analyzing alien cultures. His reports were classified at the highest levels, but now they guided human strategy. He stood before a council of Liberation Fleet commanders, both human and alien. "Every spacefaring species in this galaxy follows the same pattern," he explained. "They start as prey, weak and afraid. Then they become predators, strong and cruel. They never learn to be anything else." "What do you mean?" asked a Zephyrian commander whose wings were slowly growing back after years of captivity. "The Vorthak were once enslaved by an even older species. When they broke free, they swore never to be weak again. So they became the enslavers. The Krellin were hunted by the Vorthak for centuries. When they grew strong, they became hunters themselves." "An endless cycle," observed a Hydrosian admiral. "The oppressed become the oppressors." "Exactly. But humans offer a third option. We can be protectors instead of predators. We can break the cycle instead of continuing it. This was why the alien empires could not defeat humanity. They were fighting an enemy that did not want to replace their empire with a human empire. Humans wanted to end the concept of empire entirely. The final proof came when the alien powers made their most desperate decision. They activated the planet Cracker, a moon-sized weapon capable of destroying entire worlds. It had been built by the combined efforts of all major species as the ultimate threat against rebellion. The planet Cracker emerged from hyperspace where Earth should have been, its massive weapons charging to destroy humanity's homeworld. But Earth was not there. "Where is the planet?" demanded the planet Cracker's commander, Admiral Kethvar of the Synthesis Collective. Instead of Earth, they found something that made their sensors scream warnings. A massive space station floated where the planet had been, surrounded by a fleet of ships unlike anything they had ever seen. The ships were clearly human in design, but they incorporated technology from dozens of species. "Unknown vessels," transmitted Admiral Kethvar. "You are in violation of Galactic Council authority. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The response came from Admiral Wu Jin Nam himself. "Admiral Kethvar, you are addressing the sovereign territory of the Free Galactic Alliance. Your planet Cracker is not welcome here." Free Galactic Alliance. Admiral Kethvar checked his records. No such organization exists in Council files. It exists now. 137 species have joined us in the past year. We represent the majority of galactic civilization. The truth was stunning. While the major powers had been fighting rebellions, the humans had been building something new. Not an empire, but an alliance of equals. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were now working together under human guidance. "Impossible," transmitted Admiral Kethvar. "These species hate each other. They have been at war for millennia." "They were at war because you kept them weak and desperate," replied Admiral Wu Jin. "When people have enough resources and security, they prefer peace to war." The planet Cracker opened fire, its weapons capable of cracking moons. But the human fleet did not try to run or hide. Instead, they fought back with weapons that should not have existed. Quantum-fold torpedoes that could phase through shields, energy beams that bent space-time itself, defensive fields that turned the planet Cracker's own weapons against it. The humans had not just copied alien technology, they had improved it beyond recognition. "How?" Admiral Kethvar transmitted, desperately, as his mighty weapon began to break apart under impossible attacks. Admiral Wu Jin's final transmission was calm and almost sad. "You never understood what humans really are. We are not just another species trying to dominate the galaxy. We are the species that will teach the galaxy how to live without domination." The planet Cracker, symbol of the old order's ultimate power, exploded in the void. Its destruction was broadcast across the galaxy, witnessed by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. The message was clear. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. The destruction of the planet Cracker sent shockwaves across the galaxy. In the void where Earth once orbited, Admiral Wu Jin Nam stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbreakable Will. Around him, the greatest fleet in galactic history waited for his orders. Ships from over 100 species floated in perfect formation, united under the banner of the Free Galactic Alliance. But the alien powers needed to understand the truth before this war could truly end. Admiral Wu Jin activated the most powerful transmitter in the fleet and broadcast on all frequencies across the galaxy. "People of the stars," his voice carried to every world, every ship, every space station. "This is Admiral Wu Jin Nam of the Terran Liberation Fleet. It is time you learned the truth about humanity's plans." On Nexus Prime, the remaining members of the Galactic Council huddled in their emergency bunker. Prime Minister Gextar, General Raxoth, and Director Sithai listened with growing horror as the human admiral continued his broadcast. "For over a century since our first contact with galactic civilization, humanity has been preparing for this moment. Not preparing for war, but preparing for freedom. The broadcast included holographic records showing secret human projects dating back decades. Project Exodus had been humanity's greatest undertaking, hidden from alien observers through careful deception and quantum fold technology. HFY Park, the chief architect of Project Exodus, appeared in the transmission. She was an elderly woman now, but her eyes still burned with fierce intelligence. We knew this day would come. We studied every galactic civilization and reached a conclusion that terrified us. Her words sent chills through alien listeners across the galaxy. Every species that reached the stars became either predator or prey, conqueror or conquered, master or slave. There was no middle ground, no third option. The hologram showed the hidden construction of Earth's transformation. For 50 years, while maintaining the appearance of a normal planet, humans had been converting their homeworld into something unprecedented, a mobile, dimensional fortress. Earth itself was rebuilt, explained HFY. Every continent, every ocean, every mountain was reinforced with quantum fold technology. Our entire planet can now exist in parallel dimensional space, moving freely between realities. Commander Sung-Min Lee of the Dimensional Engineering Corps took over the explanation. Every human colony, every ship, every resource has been connected. Through an interdimensional network, we can move our entire civilization instantly to any point in the galaxy or remove it from normal space entirely. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just built a fleet or an army, they had created a civilization that was functionally invulnerable to conventional attack. No planet could be bombed, no supply line could be cut, no fleet could be trapped. But the technological revelation was not the most important part of the message. However, continued Admiral Wu Jin, the real innovation was not technological, it was philosophical. Captain Yejin Choi of the flagship took over the broadcast. She had been part of the human diplomatic corps for decades, studying alien cultures and learning their weaknesses. We realized that the galaxy was locked in an eternal cycle of oppression. The oppressed would eventually become oppressors, who would eventually be overthrown by new oppressors. This cycle had continued for millions of years, added Admiral Wu Jin. Every galactic civilization rose and fell following the same pattern. Rise as prey, become predators, eventually be destroyed by new predators. But we found a way to break the cycle. The broadcast showed scenes of liberated worlds where former enemies worked together. Zephyrians and Krellin engineers collaborating on new technologies. Hydrosian and Vorthak families sharing resources. Species that had been at war for millennia now building joint colonies. The solution was simple, explained Admiral Wu Jin. Stop the cycle of oppression entirely. Instead of replacing old masters with new masters, eliminate the concept of masters altogether. We did not come to conquer the galaxy, added Captain Yejin. We came to free it, not just from current oppressors, but from the idea that oppression is necessary. The broadcast included testimony from dozens of alien species, former slaves who now served as equals in the liberation fleet, former oppressors who had been offered redemption instead of revenge. The humans offered us something we had never imagined, said a Krellin general who had defected from his empire. They offered us the chance to be neither predator nor prey, but simply to be free. They showed us that cooperation is stronger than domination, added a Vorthak scientist. When we work together as equals, everyone becomes stronger. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. This was always our plan, said Admiral Wu Jin. From the moment we met the first alien ship, we knew this day would arrive. The blockade, the ultimatum, the planet cracker. We planned for all of it. Recordings showed human leaders from decades ago discussing scenarios that matched current events with frightening accuracy. They had predicted the alien response and prepared for every possibility. You see, explained HFY Park, we studied galactic history and learned that peaceful species are always eventually attacked by aggressive ones. The only way to ensure lasting peace was to change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. So, we let you start this war, said Admiral Wu Jin. We let you reveal your true nature to the galaxy. Every species could see clearly who were the oppressors and who were the oppressed. The psychological impact was devastating. The alien empires realized they had been outmaneuvered from the very beginning. Every move they had made, every strategy they had chosen, had been anticipated and countered by human planning. But we offer you the same choice we offered everyone else, continued Admiral Wu Jin. Join us as equals in building a better galaxy, or face extinction as the last defenders of the old ways. In the bunker on Nexus Prime, the alien leaders sat in stunned silence. Their mighty empires, their ancient power, their technological superiority, all of it had been revealed as an illusion. They played us, whispered General Raxoth. From the beginning, they played us like children. What do we do now? Asked Director Sci-Fi. Prime Minister Gextar looked at his advisors with ancient, tired eyes. We have no choice. Our fleets are destroyed. Our allies have abandoned us. Our subjects have rebelled. The final part of the human broadcast showed the current state of the galaxy. The Liberation Fleet controlled most star systems. The remaining alien empires held only their core worlds, surrounded by enemies and cut off from resources. This is your last chance, said Admiral Wu Jin. Surrender your weapons, release any remaining slaves, and join the Free Galactic Alliance as equal members. The age of empires is over. The age of freedom has begun. Choose wisely, added Captain Ye Jin. History will remember what you decide today. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in silence. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings waited to see if their former masters would choose wisdom or destruction. The answer would determine the future of galactic civilization. The first to surrender was General Raxoth of the Krellin Dominion. His once proud fleet, reduced to a handful of ships, approached the human fortress where Earth had once been. The great warrior who had terrorized the galaxy for decades now came as a supplicant, requesting permission to enter human space. Admiral Wu Jin stood in the receiving bay as the Krellin shuttle landed. General Raxoth emerged alone, his 4 arms carrying no weapons. The massive insect-like being who had once commanded millions of soldiers now walked with the careful steps of the defeated. I come to surrender, General Raxoth said simply. His voice, once like grinding metal, now sounded hollow and tired. You come to choose, corrected Admiral Wu Jin. Surrender implies defeat. We prefer to think of this as a new beginning. The Krellin general looked confused. He had expected to be humiliated, imprisoned, or executed. Instead, he was being offered something he did not understand. I do not deserve mercy, he said quietly. My people have enslaved others for thousands of years. I have personally ordered the deaths of millions. That is true, agreed Admiral Wu Jin. But the question is not what you deserve. The question is what kind of galaxy we want to build together. Over the following weeks, the remaining alien powers arrived one by one. Prime Minister Gextar of the Vorthak Empire came with his remaining senators. Director Sci-Fi of the Synthesis Collective brought the last of the machine minds. Dozens of smaller empires and kingdoms sent their representatives. They all expected to be treated as conquered enemies. Instead, they found themselves guests at the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. The new Galactic Assembly met on a massive space station constructed specifically for this purpose. It was not built on the ruins of the old Nexus Prime, which had been a symbol of alien domination. Instead, humans had created something entirely new in the void between galaxies, neutral space that belonged to no one species. In-Ho Kang served as the first human galactic mediator. He was a diplomat who had spent years studying every alien culture, learning their histories and understanding their fears. His job was not to dictate terms, but to help everyone find common ground. "We are not here to punish the past," he announced to the assembled representatives. "We are here to plan the future." The Great Hall contained delegates from over 200 species. Former slaves sat next to former masters. Ancient enemies found themselves working on the same committees. It should have been chaos, but somehow it worked. Da-Yun Song, the chief architect of the new Galactic Constitution, led the drafting process. She was a legal scholar who had studied the constitutions of every successful democracy in galactic history. Her challenge was to create laws that could work for species with completely different biologies, cultures, and ways of thinking. The first principle, she explained to the assembly, is that no species may enslave another. This is not negotiable. Some delegates protested. "But our economy depends on slave labor," argued a representative of the hegemony of worlds. "Then your economy will change," replied Da-Un firmly. "We will help you transition to free labor, but slavery ends today." "What about species that are naturally subservient?" asked another delegate. "Some beings prefer to be led by others." "Preference and slavery are different things," answered In-Ho Kong. "Anyone who chooses to serve another may do so freely, but they must also be free to leave at any time." The debates continued for months. Every principle had to be argued, every law had to be justified, but gradually a new framework emerged. The second principle was self-determination. Every species had the right to govern itself according to its own culture and values, as long as those values did not harm others. The third principle was mutual aid. Strong species had a duty to help weaker ones, not exploit them. Technology and resources should be shared for the benefit of all. The fourth principle was peaceful resolution. Conflicts between species must be resolved through negotiation and mediation, not war. "These principles seem impossible," admitted Prime Minister Gextar during one debate. "Species have been fighting each other since the beginning of time. How can you expect them to suddenly start working together?" "Because we will show them that cooperation works better than conflict," replied Da-Un. "Look around this room. Former enemies are already working together to write these laws." It was true. Krellin military experts were sharing tactical knowledge with Zephyrian defense planners. Vorthak engineers collaborated with Hydrosian environmental specialists. The Synthesis Collective offered to share their advanced computing technology with everyone. The breakthrough came when General Raxoth stood to address the assembly. The former warlord had been quiet during most of the proceedings, but now he had something important to say. "I have been a soldier my entire life," he began. "I believed that strength came from making others fear you. I was wrong." His words carried across the hall. Even his former enemies listened with respect. "These humans have shown me a different kind of strength. They made themselves powerful not by crushing others, but by lifting others up. Their allies fight harder than any slave army because they fight for something they believe in." He paused, looking around at the delegates from species he had once conquered. "I cannot undo the harm I have caused, but I can help build something better. I pledge the remaining strength of the Krellin people to this new alliance." One by one, other former oppressors stood to make similar pledges. The Vorthak offered their water purification technology to desert worlds. The Synthesis shared their manufacturing capabilities with developing species. Even the smallest empires found ways to contribute to the common good. But the humans surprised everyone with their response. Instead of accepting these pledges as tribute from the conquered, they offered something unprecedented: forgiveness. "The past is finished," declared In-Ho Kang. "We judge you not by what you were, but by what you choose to become." The final ceremony was held on the restored Earth, returned to normal space as a symbol of the new age. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in vast amphitheaters to sign the new Galactic Covenant. Commander Tae-Young Im of the Peacekeeping Fleet oversaw security for the event. Instead of soldiers with weapons, the peacekeepers carried tools for construction and symbols of unity. Their job was not to enforce peace through fear, but to help maintain it through service. The signing ceremony lasted 3 days. Each species added their name to the covenant in their own way, some with traditional ink, others with quantum signatures, still others with biological markers. But all were equal under the new laws. When the last signature was complete, In-Ho Kang stood before the assembly to deliver the closing address. "Today we have done something that was thought impossible," he said. "We have created a government based on equality instead of domination, on cooperation instead of competition, on freedom instead of fear." He gestured to the assembled delegates, representatives of every major civilization in the galaxy. "Look around you. A year ago, many of you were enemies. Today, you are partners in building the greatest civilization in galactic history." The cheers that followed could be heard across continents, on Earth and on thousands of other worlds. Beings celebrated the dawn of a new age. As the ceremony ended, Admiral Wu Jin stood with his fellow commanders, watching ships from hundreds of species departing peacefully. The human vessels flew alongside, their former enemies, now allies in protecting the new order. "Do you think it will last?" asked Captain Ye Jin, looking at the mixed fleet. Admiral Wu Jin smiled, watching a Krellin destroyer flying in formation with a Zephyrian fighter squadron and a Hydrotian exploration vessel. "It will last," he said confidently, "because we built it on something stronger than fear or force. We built it on hope." Above them, the banner of the Free Galactic Alliance flew proudly in the solar wind. Its simple message, written in hundreds of languages, proclaimed the new reality to the universe: liberty for all. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun.